All right, everyone, welcome back to another lecture of Inder University. We're going to be talking about the two brand new items coming to Pokemon Unite, the Cursed Band and the Cursed Bangle. Actually, it's the Cursed Bangle and the Cursed Incense. Whoever made my slideshow messed up, aka me. So this is the Cursed Incense here on the right, the Cursed Bangle on the top left. We're going to be talking about what are these items. Spoiler alert, they interact with healing in the game. I'm going to be telling you guys what counts as healing, so what you can keep in mind and how this item affects those things. The individual items, how they work, some builds I'm excited to try out on them, and what does it mean for the metagame? What's getting nerfed? Are healers no longer needed now? Are healers out of the metagame? Tanks? What does this mean for Focus Band? Everything and more we're going to be covering in today's episode of Inder University. So, the new cursed items. They are Pokemon Unite's first introduction from an item perspective to anti-healing. If you're familiar with Delphox's Unite move, it reduces healing for people that are in the circle affected by that debuff. Now every character in the game has access, once again, to anti-healing. Sad day for healers, for sure. And I'll talk more about that towards the end. I will say, don't need to worry too much, but it is a sad day. So what counts as healing? You know, these things are anti-healing, but what is healing in the first place in Pokemon Unite? Easiest point of reference is if you see that little green text appear, this, plus 320, for example, that I have up here. If you see that pop up, that's a source of healing in the game. But there's lots of sources in the healing in the game. The biggest ones are your self-healing moves. So I talked about Lapras earlier in today's stream. Lapras's boosted auto attack. There's a big source of healing for Lapras. For Slowbro, it might be Slack Off or Amnesia through its passive. But even damage dealers, so Dodrio's Geopeck Plus, big source of healing. Lucario's Close Combat, Serena's healing, both on its Axel and Stomp getting buffed. Pretty much all the characters in the game, minus a couple of them, have some source of healing, right? Whether that be Lifesteal, which you could see lower down, which is HP recovery you get from your basic attack, present on a lot of all-rounders and a lot of ADCs, so like Cinder, the Mewtwo's have it, Decidueye, Duraludon, most of the all-rounders have some lifesteal built in as well. If you happen to run Drain Crown, that'd give you lifesteal. Items like Focus Band, that's a big one that's going to be impacted by this. Focus Band and Potion, I think, are the two items you'll see a lot less usage of, just because you're going to be affected by the anti-healing from there. Potion, you have a little bit of control of. You can look at when the debuff expires, activate your potion afterwards. I think that'll be a good opportunity for some skill expression across all the characters in the game. But Focus Band, you don't really have a choice, so I think we'll see a significant drop in Focus Band in the upcoming metagame. Obviously, you talked about healers as well, so whether that be Soft-Boiled Blissey, Moonlight from Clef, Eldegoss's Pollen Puff, stuff like that is going to be impacted. I think the biggest healer nerf, though, is going to be Moonlight Clefable. I think characters that have access to AoE moves that can apply the cursed effect in an AoE, and I'll explain how the effect works as well. Moonlight Clefable, I think, is going to probably feel the biggest nerf, especially because you tend to run Moonlight Clefable with other tanks. A common comp you saw maybe at Worlds or competitive play would be like Blastoise or Lapras with another tank, potentially another Bruiser somewhere in there, and then Clefable AoE healing all those people. That kind of composition isn't gone, like it's not completely countered, but there is some counterplay now, which is good. This is a good release for us. Berries is another source of healing. So across the map, if you pick up citrus berries or gradient berries, if you stand on your pad, and the pads as you get closer to your base have increased healing amounts. Standing in base, so even Hoopa sending you back home, you notice when you go home, you get that green number pop up. That's a source of healing. Some of you might know from previous Inder University lectures that knocking out wild Pokemon also provides healing. So whether that be knocking out wild Pokemon or being a part of an objective knockout, our good friend Reggie Ice gives healing across the map to your allies as well. All of that and any other sources of that green text you see will be considered healing, and it will be somewhat countered by the new cursed items. One thing to keep in mind, I saw a lot of this on Twitter and had someone reach out to me via DMs as well. Do shields count as healing? Also, guys, if you do have a question, I don't mind you asking me in DMs, but just at me on Twitter. It's probably the easiest place I'll find it. Shields do not count as healing. So Wiggly's Unite, Cotton Guard, self-shielding, standing on your pad and getting that shield, those are not sources of healing. Those will be unaffected by the new cursed items. Cool. So let's talk about the bangle. Now, why are there two versions of the cursed items? Well, one of them is designed for physical attackers, and the other is designed for special attackers. This is the physical version of the item. You'll see some characters I have listed here. I would say we're going to talk about that later, so don't be too focused on that right now. The item itself provides 24 physical attack. That's in line with the exact same amount of attack that Floatstone provides you with. It's about the same attack, a little bit less than one stack of attack weight, plus the passive from attack weight itself. It's more than Razor Claw, it's more than Muscle Band. So it is a top tier item in terms of the stats it provides, but it does only provide physical attack. Floatstone gives you movement speed, Muscle Band gives you attack speed, Razor Claw gives you physical or crit chance, etc. So this item solely from a stats perspective is only attack. What does it do? It reduces your target's healing by 30% once you inflict physical damage. So this is something important to keep in mind. Only physical based damage will trigger this. The effect itself lasts for 1.5 seconds if you hit them with one of your moves or if your abilities have some kind of triggers. And that number is increased to 3 seconds if your damage comes from your physical attack. So for example, Decidui, if you Spirit Shackle them, 1.5 seconds to have that healing debuff on them. But if you basic attack them, for the next 3 seconds. The effect doesn't stack with the other cursed item or other Cursed Bangles or the Cursed Incense, but it does stack with other sources of heal reduction. And to my knowledge, right now, the only other source of heal reduction is Delphox's Unite. So it stacks with Delphox's Unite. Now, this isn't something that's confirmed, but this is how my gamer's intuition, my professor's intuition works, is I think every character in the game is going to have a stat, like a hidden stat, of their HP recovery multiplier. So some characters have HP recovery buffs, like Trevenant when it Unite moves, 50% increased healing, Slowbro when it slack offs, I think it's 100% increasing from self sources. So some characters will have increased self recovery or HP recovery, same thing as Rescue Hood. And then the cursed items and Delphox's Unite and future sources of anti-healing will reduce that number. So most will start at 0, some will be able to increase theirs, some will be able to decrease theirs. And I think that's like a lever that they might mess around with more in the future. That's how it's worked in other games. My professor's intuition leads me to that as well. Also, the item has a 1-second internal cooldown. That will be relevant for damage over time effects, but it'll be able to reapply itself automatically. So let's talk about the characters that I had on screen. Sableye, Decidueye, and Talonflame. Are these the only physical attackers that can use the Cursed Bangle? No. Is this necessarily going to be the meta item for these characters? No. We haven't gotten the chance to play with these items yet, so this is me looking ahead in time, what I think will be good. I think there's going to be a lot of different characters, a lot of different use cases, but some things you want to keep in mind that I think will make these items good are, do you have a way to apply them in an AoE? That's one thing that'll make it good. Can you apply them at long range, or does your character have some sort of poke? That'll probably be really strong with that as well. And does your character rely on knocking people out, either diving them on their pads, killing people through Focus Band? Do you struggle with Focus Band on your character? And can you make use of the flat stats as well? So Sableye. I think Sableye is the first character that came to mind because I'm a support player, and it's one of the only physical attack characters I have in mind that I can play. But I think this would be a great build. EXP Share Floatstone for that movement speed across the map. Floatstone gives physical attack. Bangle gives physical attack. You run it on the Feint Attack build, the Poopies build. And now you have a way to counter the counter to you. Traditionally, like one of the things that makes the Feint Attack build not as strong is if the enemy team has a healer like Blissey or Clefable, they can pretty much just counter your Feint Attack damage over time. But now you have a way to counterplay to that, and you can buff the damage of your feint attack itself. So I'm really excited to try this build. I think this is going to be really fun. You can apply it globally. Even when you're going for kills in the early game, you're going to go out of stealth, you basic attack them, you fear them for a couple seconds, they get stunned. And then because basic attacks apply the anti-healing for longer, really good synergy there. Also, one of the cool things I think this will do for Sableye is your Unite move sometimes in the late game can be kind of awkward. Like, you know, you want to save it to get a good Unite move to send people back. Maybe you need to use it to live. And, you know, sometimes it's awkward getting a really good Unite move on Sableye. But now at the start of the fight, you could literally just cast your Unite move. If you see like a good opportunity to hit a bunch of people, get a little bit of burst damage in, and then apply anti-healing for the rest of your team. I think Sableye is going to have some good synergy with this item. Now, Decidueye. This is another character that I was brainstorming when I was thinking of the cursed items. The build that I have here would require you to drop attack weight. And to be honest, I think for a lot of, you know, beginner to intermediate players, that's probably a good idea. I see a lot of people, you know, completely foregoing their positioning, their farm in the lane, at times even like just foregoing everything on the map just to play for those stacks. So yeah, your Spirit Shackles compared to a fully stacked Spirit Shackle with this build would be much less attack. You could drop the float. I don't think you would ever drop the Muscle Band. Muscle Band provides a lot of utility to your basic attacks, but I think the Float Stone could be dropped. I think I'm going to drop the attack weight to begin with. You still end up getting a good amount of flat attacks. So you're going to be really strong in the laning phase. And one of, again, similar to Sableye, one of the ways you counter Decidueye, and to be honest, like I feel like not a lot of people respect this, but you want to have a healer into Decidueye. Those constant Spirit Shackles, if you don't have a way to recover the poke from those Spirit Shackles, Decidueye becomes a very scary Pokemon, which is why, you know, some of you that play this character in solo queue, you might have like wildly different performances where one game you feel like, you know, you're just popping off, you know, you're the owl from Hogwarts, you know, you're him, you're her, you're them. And then other games, you're like, my character sucks. They have a healer, they're diving me, it sucks. But with this cursed item, at least you have a way to interact with some of the healing that is in the game. Also, it makes your basic attacks into basically like a tank buster, especially in the laning phase. If you catch Slowbros or Trevenants with potion in your lane, they're gonna have a tough time living your damage. You know, traditionally, they would just stand on top of you, even Lapras. They would just stand on top of you, let their healing go by, activate potion, and they'd be chilling. They're gonna lose a lot of that. And then similar to Sableye, I think this introduces such a big new utility to your Unite move. The moment the fight starts, you cast your Unite move from long range, you apply anti-healing to everyone, you just try to hit as many different targets as you can. A lot of times you're gonna end up hitting that tank. And now the rest of your damage healers that are gonna go in, they don't need to have the cursed item, right? If you're 5-stacking, not everyone needs to have the cursed item on. And suddenly now you can provide some utility with your Unite move, which is pretty cool too. And then finally, Talonflame. Talonflame is probably the most ambitious character I think I have listed here for a character that can use the cursed item. The reason for that is, you know, there's a lot of good items on Talonflame. Energy Amp, solid. Float Stone's great. You know, you still want to run attack weight because it's got really good scaling. But the biggest reason why I think cursed item might be good on Talonflame and some other speedsters in the game is, especially for Talonflame, one of the biggest reasons that Talonflame struggles is if you ever catch someone with a focus band, you do your fly auto flame charge auto combo on someone, and if their focus band triggers within that time frame, you're stuck without any cooldowns, without any escape, and then they end up living on 1 HP or like, you know, on low HP, and then you're in a bad spot and you end up getting knocked out as well. So with anti-healing for Talonflame, I think you'll have a much easier time getting through those focus bands, diving people on their pads. You know, if you break that tier 1 goal early and you're diving someone on their tier 2 pad, you're gonna have some much bigger kill threats. Also, if you're a couple levels up, now you can actually take down stuff like Slowbro and Trevenant. So I do think there's potential with this item on Talonflame, but you know, let the meta develop out, actually play with the item, see how it feels. I'm a big believer of just see how it feels. as opposed to just strictly theory crafting. But for some fun builds, if you do end up picking up this item, I think these are 3 solid choices for it. Some other things I had in mind were Cursed Trevenant. You just walk into the fight, you know, curse damage over time, get some good anti-healing, some good utility for your team through curse as well. But yeah, mess around. Let me know if you find any characters you really like using the Cursed Bangle with. I'd be happy to try it out as well. Cool. So let's talk about the Bangle's brother, the Cursed Incense. This is a special attack variation of this item. Works almost identically, but instead it provides special attack and only triggers on special attacks. So this provides 39 special attack. This is equivalent to the special attack provided by choice specs. The same amount as Wise Glasses if you don't include the percentage bonus. It's roughly about the same as 1 stack of special attack specs. And it is more than Spoon. Spoon gives 30 special attack, this gives 39. But obviously you could run them together. Again, it reduces the target's healing by 30% when inflicting special base damage. It lasts for 1.5 seconds from your moves. And 3 seconds when inflicted by basic attacks. Now, this is something that I do need to test. Does this mean by basic attacks that are special attack damage, aka only your boosteds and Glaceon autos? I'm not sure, to be honest. We haven't been able to mess around with this item, so this is something that you'll want to do your own testing on or look for a follow-up from me on. Regardless, you're going to be applying this with your moves primarily, and it's going to be good on a lot of characters, I think. Again, it doesn't stack with the other cursed item, doesn't stack with its brother. It does stack with Delphox's Unite move, and then in the future, I imagine there's other sources of anti-healing. It'll stack with that as well. Similarly, it's got a 1-second internal cooldown. So let's talk about some builds with this item. I think Delphox, my intuition tells me this is going to be a staple Delphox item. I think Delphox is going to be the premier kind of tank buster, anti-healer. You know, if people want, especially in competitive, if people want to try to run, you know, comps that are like, you know, Gudra plus a strong healer, Petal Dance plus a strong healer, I think Delphox is going to completely shut down that kind of strategy. It already does, but it's going to be doing it so much better. I think it buffs the Fire Spin, Fire Blast moveset a little bit more, but I think both movesets can use this to its advantage. You get a lot of flat special attack from Spoon and the Incense. You can choose to run an Amp. I think Amp is obviously always good on Delphox. Obviously, it's got a really low Unite move, does a lot of damage during it, but I think you could swap out the Amp for choice specs if you wanted to have a stronger laning phase. I think that'd be totally acceptable. But I think some variation of Spoon and Incense and a third item is what the build is going to look like. So obviously it stacks, good early laning for the special attack. But I really think, you know, you're going to be playing into Slowbros, Trevenants, Lapras, Gudra. It's going to completely obliterate those types of Pokemon. So Delphox is an obvious one. Sylveon's one that I had in mind. When I think of special attackers, and I'm talking about Hyper Voice right now, I know I have both movesets listed here, but specifically Hyper Voice, Sylveon is the one special attacker I always look at the builds, and I'm like, Spoon is good here, but Spoon isn't necessary. It's just, you might as well run Spoon, because who doesn't want 30 special attack and some HP, and the effect is pretty decent with Hyper Voice, and it's good in the early game before you have Hyper Voice. So it's like, yeah, Spoon's always been good, but what if we dropped the Spoon, right? Ran Wise Glasses, because Wise Glasses is really good synergy with Calm Mind to give you a big special attack boost. You maintain the choice specs for good early game, and now your Hyper Voice, which is already really good at busting down tanks, just became a lot better, right? You're chasing down a Blissey, and sometimes, you know, like if the Blissey has decent levels or is stacked, it kind of just stands in your Hyper Voice. It heals, it walks away, it heals, it walks away. Same thing with Clefable. Now a strong Sylveon in the game is going to put pressure on those healers. It's not going to counter, it's not going to make the healers unplayable, but I think it's going to give the Sylveon, you know, better options into it, which is really good. Obviously, it's going to take down tanks like the likes of Slowbro and Tree and Gudra and Lapras. All of those tanks are going to struggle into this. They already do. But I think it's got a lot of potential. Now, Mystical Fire Sylveon, also very interesting. You wouldn't run this build here, I don't think so. I think the build you'd want to run is like, and this is where the testing that I talked about earlier is how it's going to work on the basic attacks will come into play. if the effect will work on its physical based basic attacks, not only its special. But I think Mystical Fire Sylveon is going to be a nuisance for those special attack healers like Eld, like Blissey, like Clefable. Because for those of you that don't know, Mystical Fire reduces the special attack of the targeted hits. And all those healers, their healing is scales off of special attacks. So Sylveon, in a way, in like a soft way, already existed as an anti-healer to specific healers in the game. And now with the Cursed Incense, those effects are going to overlap with each other. And it'll be really hard for Blisseys and Clefables to stay alive into a Mystical Fire build. I'm not sure what the build would look like. It'd probably be Muscle Spoon, Curse. Maybe you can drop the Spoon for focus. Probably not. Maybe you could drop the Muscle for focus. Some variation of that kind of build I think will be really, really strong. And it's something I'm excited to try out. I'm not saying it's going to be the absolute best build in the game. That's going to take some time to figure out and play with. But I think it'll be very, very fun, especially if you're playing in draft or if you're playing in a really Blissey heavy meta, which if you read the patch notes with me earlier, Blissey's going to be still around, maybe with Safeguard. But Clefable, Blissey, these types of characters aren't going anywhere. All right, Slowbro. Now this, again, is my wild card pick. I had Talonflame for the physical attackers. I got Slowbro here for the special attackers. I think a lot of defenders will have the opportunity to leverage this item. I think Blastoise Rapid Spin might use this item as well. But the traditional Slowbro build isn't that different from what I've listed here. It's usually EXP Share, Focus Band, and then either Choice Specs or Spoon. You run a special attack item because the other tank items generally aren't valuable enough. Character's already very tanky. So you run a special attack item to give you stronger laning phase and a little bit better scaling on your moves. And why not just, if your team doesn't have a source of anti-healing, if you don't have a cursed item holder, I think Bro could be a good one for your team. Both Scald and Surf are, solid damage over time moves, especially Scald. Scald being really good at counting physical attackers. Those types of physical attackers that it counters, like Zacian and Garchomp, they rely really heavily on their lifesteal. So you're going to be doing an increased effect on them as well. Kind of similar to how I talked about Mystical Fire. And it also makes your Unite move much, much harder to counter. If you're a Slowbro main, you'll notice a lot of times you Slowbro out someone, and if you don't have enough damage, even the Focus Band might keep them alive sometimes. Or like an Eldegoss Unite, or Clefable's healing. Like a lot of times a Slowbro ult is hard to guarantee a kill with. I think this cursed item will give you some counterplay to that. Plus 39 special attack for defenders is really, really valuable. Remember, it's like basically one stack of special attack specs. So I think there's some potential to use this on Blastoise. If you had a tough time stacking on Blastoise and you just want to have like a non-stacking game, which is totally acceptable, I think you could play Focus Band, Spoon, Cursed Incense, Rapid Spin, good damage over time. You'll be able to get some anti-healing when you dive people on their tier 1 pads, dive people with Focus Band. I think the Curse item is gonna, especially for special attackers, gonna have a lot of application. I didn't talk about other attackers, but Gardevoir, obviously Sylveon, Glaceon. I think a lot of special attackers are going to have the opportunity to use this. These are just some of the fun ones I had in mind. But cool. I kind of hinted at this throughout the rest of the lecture, but our healer's dead, right? I see some chirps on Twitter. Oh, no reason to play healers anymore. Anti-healing, the game is ruined. I'm a support main. I'm going on strike. I'm playing Clash of Clans now. I'm switching to blah, blah, blah. Look, guys. As a seasoned MOBA player, as a support enthusiast, we're fine, okay? You don't have to worry. You can't have the mindset as a supporter player that your only job is to heal your team, okay? The mean Mewtwo players and the bully Cinderaces and, the Greninjas out there, they might look at you as a heal bot, but I promise you, you're more than that, okay? You're much more than that. Eldegoss, your main value as Eldegoss in the early game is destroying people with your basic attacks and the slows you provide. You have knockups, you have shields, you have a lot of different things you do as Eld. And 30%, while it is a substantial amount, isn't going to mean that your healing is not valuable anymore. For Blissey, you know, your job in the early game is to secure farm for your carry. There's no healing involved in that. Blissey's Unite move, completely uncountered by this. Safeguard Helping Hand build, still completely viable. Egg Bomb, you know, you can still disrupt people with Egg Bombs. And Soft Boiled, again, still going to be useful. Clefable, on the other hand, is one of the characters I think that will struggle a little bit more. But to be fair, right, the metagame that was going to develop with teams running, like, imagine this composition, right? I'm going to give you a pretend composition. You've got the Lapras in the bot lane as your tank, the Blastoise in the top lane. You know, maybe you've got in the bot lane an Inteleon or an A9, like an annoying mage. You've got whatever character you want in the jungle, or Shifu, Zoroark, Dodrio, maybe a mage. And then you've got a Clefable, right? This tricore of Lapras, Blastoise, Clefable just running at you, being unkillable because of their tankiness and the self-healing that Lapras has and the moonlight healing, it was too much, right? And there was no counterplay in the game other than Delphox or just winning throughout the map or not giving up that kind of composition. And now I think the game is going to be a lot healthier with this item. That being said, there's going to be some suffering. There's going to be some growing pains. Slowbro players are going to be really mad. I think just randomly equipping Potion on tanks that day is going to be gone. I don't think it was that good anyways, but I think Potion might be a little bit worse now. But that double tank healer kind of composition it's not good for the game. I promise you. If you've played Overwatch before, what's that comp called? The GOATS comp? You know how people hated the double tank, double healer metas. If we got something like that in Unite, it would be bad. So I'm happy that there's some counterplay in the game now. That being said, Focus Band, I think, is going to be used a lot less now. Focus Band on tanks, Focus Band on healers, Focus Band on attackers. You have no way to control when your Focus Band really procs. So if it procs by someone that's holding a cursed item, it's going to be 30% less effective. So I think, you know, and I just hope we get draft and ranked so we can use things like Assault Vest, you know? If you notice the enemy team is heavy special attack, you know, they got the Delphoxes, the Sylves, or whatever, pop an Assault Vest where you would have your Focus Band instead. It gives you, now, compared to cursed items, much more survivability and, you know, reasonable counterplay. Things like Score Shield giving good amount of flat HP are still solid. Buddy Barrier, shields not being affected by the cursed items. You know, I think there's going to be some good counterplay options. That being said, Focus Band's not a dead item. I just think the days of Focus Band just being so annoying and hard to play into are gone. And that's it. For the live viewers, I'm going to lift it off of emote only mode. If you're watching this on YouTube and you have any questions in the comments, if you have any questions in the chat, now's your chance. If you had anything there. But for everyone watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Inder University is back. If you don't have any questions, let me know topics that you're interested in me covering, whether they're more statistical analyses like this one, coupled with my opinion, and I'm happy to do that. If you want stuff on like macro or the metagame, which are more opinion-based, happy to do that. So let me know what you're interested in, and I'd be happy to prep something up for you.